We are not actually sure it's going to leave the European Economic Area, but it is going to leave the European Union. That's pretty clear. I think part of the answer to that is it really does depend on what sort of deal is reached. Somewhere between bad and dreadful, it would be my answer. If we leave the European Union but retain membership of the Customs Union, for example, and have a reasonable agreement on access to the single market, that we can discuss what it will be, then it will be bad for the UK, but it will be at the sort of lower end of the damage, probably over time, cumulatively, GDP losses of 2 or 3%, not more than that. If, however, it ends up as a sort of catastrophic breakdown, a deal isn't reached at the end of this 2-year process triggered by Article 50, an application to leave, then, and we're suddenly catapulted out of the EU, and it becomes obvious that's going to happen, we will have a short-term crisis, I think a big reduction in investment, probably quite a deep recession, and the longer-term consequences could be much more adverse, maybe as big as 7–8% of GDP by 2030. So it really depends on how the exit happens and the nature of the deal that's reached. Now that is really a very important question. How will these negotiations work and how will it play back at home? I think, unfortunately, the nature of a divorce negotiation, as far as I can see, looking at couples getting divorced, is even if they start out hoping to have a relatively friendly divorce, it becomes rather bitter as they start squabbling over the house, the property, the children, and this, I think, will be no exception. There are people already in the governing party, a few in the government, who start off with a very resentful attitude towards the European Union. The government will feel under pressure from them, while also under pressure from the European Union partners who will want to make the best possible deal and will be pretty tough, I think, not to give Britain a free ride. I think that the dynamics of that could very quickly get rather nasty, and there will be a sense in Britain of us against them, of being picked upon by a bigger partner, and that could well lead to a great deal of resentment. At worst, it could start fragmenting the governing party, though I think Theresa May, the Prime Minister, will do everything in her power to keep it together. But since the opposition has more or less disappeared as an effective force, and I don't expect that to change, the dynamics will be within the ruling party and between the ruling party and the people. And given the composition of the ruling party, Conservative Party, doesn't want to be outflanked on the right by UKIP, I expect it to become quite vehement, somewhat xenophobic, and really quite dangerous for domestic political, at least, equanimity. Well, everything can be turned into a success, even stupid decisions like Brexit. And I expect it to be difficult in the short to medium term, between sort of difficult and very difficult. And there will be losses, I think, whatever happens. But if we reach a reasonably friendly deal with the European Union, which maintains at least participation in the customs union or free trade area with some access to markets, and we also pursue the right policies at home, we'll need more structural reform, sensible industrial policies, a real determination to maintain an open economy, to maintain access to immigration. It's very important for Britain that we continue to have relatively easy immigration, particularly of skilled people. If we try to genuinely position ourselves as open to the world, including open to Europe, then I think in time, it will probably take quite a while, the British economy can still prosper. But that depends on our own policies first and foremost. It depends on not becoming protectionist, not becoming inward-looking, not becoming hostile to foreigners. If we do that, it can be made at least a reasonable success. But I am absolutely unpersuaded that leaving the EU would leave us better off, unless, as some people fear, the EU itself will go through some terrible crisis in the next 10 years, which will make being part of it really very unattractive. That is possible, but it's not what I expect.